Hi, friends. My name is Zeenat KJ, founder and managing partner of Wings Training Solutions. And I welcome you all to Soft Skills Adda series of videos. In this video, we're going to talk about how to give and receive feedback. Usually, people come to me asking this question. It's not easy to give feedback to people because people can get offended. Although I'm in an authoritative position, it makes it very difficult for me every time to share any kind of feedback to any person. My answer to this question usually is very simple. I say, if you know the appropriate way of giving feedback can also be joyous. So let's get started with how to give feedback appropriately to a person, both in professional as well as in personal life. Friends, let's learn the process of giving feedback step by step. Step number one, check your motives or check your intentions. Please understand the intention of giving feedback to a person is not to insult the person, but to elevate the person. In simple words, the intention behind giving feedback to any person is to help the person to become better, to become the better version of himself or herself. This is the first thing what we all have to work on when it comes to giving feedback. I've always seen majority of the times this is where most of us go wrong. We think giving feedback is all about putting the person down, telling the person these are the areas in which you're not very good at. No. The intention behind giving the feedback is to help the person to understand which are those areas in which the person might have to work to become the better version of himself or herself. You giving feedback to a person can work like a mirror, where just by showing the mirror, you're showing the person that these are the areas you're extremely good at, these are the areas which you have to actually work on. So please check your motive before you could give feedback to anybody, because this will set the tone for the process for the rest of the steps of giving feedback. Step number two, do it in private. Friends, please understand, giving feedback is not like making any kind of declaration in front of the public. As people say, always praise in public and condemn in private. Whenever you have to say good things about people, tell that in front of the whole world. Whenever you have to talk about something on which the person has to work on, then please make sure that you're having this particular talk when you are all alone with the person, not when you're in front of everybody, because that will actually set a very wrong stage for the entire process of giving feedback. So make sure that you're doing this. Point number three, be specific with your comments and feedback. This is very important. This happened with me many years ago. Somebody actually sat through my session in one of the colleges, and once the session got over, the person came to me and told me, "Ma'am, I actually have a feedback to give it to you. I felt something was missing in your session." The first sentence which came out of me was, "Thank you so much for the feedback. If you could help me to understand what was that factor which was actually missing in my session, that will help me to be better the next time when I conduct the session." This person was like, he looked up and then he looked here and there, he looked down, he looked a little confused, and then he looked at me again and he said, "Ma'am, I'm not sure what was missing in the session, but definitely something was missing in the session." Now, I would like to call this feedback as a vague feedback. It wasn't a specific feedback at all. It didn't help me to understand which was that area in which this person wanted me to actually become better. Whenever you give feedback to a person, please make sure you are extremely specific, to the point, without beating around the bush. You are letting the person know this is what the area you have to work on. Imagine if I come to you and I say, you have to work on being a good team member. Now, this is a very vague feedback. But if I come to you and I say, I would really appreciate if you could work on the way you talk to people in your team, very specific. So you have to prepare yourself mentally with every word, every sentence, so that the feedback what you would be giving to the person can genuinely, literally help the person to work on. So make sure that you do a little bit of preparation over here for sure. Step number 4, make specific suggestion. What if I come to you and I tell you, hey, you need to work on how to write reports. Great, thank you so much for that feedback. However, could you tell me how to write the report? Could you help me with that? Now, if the person who is receiving the feedback would ask you this question, do you have the answer to this question? If your answer is no, I don't have any suggestions to make. All I know is something missing in the way you write a report. Once again, that becomes very indefinite, and that is not helping the person to work on. Imagine I come to you and I say, I strongly feel that you need to work on the way you talk to your team members. What I would suggest you is, why not you spend more time with your team members, knowing them, understanding each one of your team members, which can help you to actually create the bond with all the team members, which can even eventually help you to become a good listener. And you can actually work on understanding their input, what can be the best for the project. It's going to help you over a period of time. Now, this is something called making specific suggestion. So make sure that you do have specific suggestions to make when you're about to give feedback. Otherwise, this is going to be very inappropriate and incomplete way of giving feedback. Step number 5, follow sandwich methodology. This is what is very important when we talk about giving feedback, my dear friends. So what's sandwich methodology? I thought instead of I explaining everything to you from the beginning to the end, why not I show you the picture? As you can see right now on the screen, there is a beautiful picture of a sandwich, both on the right hand side as well as on the left hand side. The one which you see on the right hand side actually gives you detailed version of giving feedback. The one which is on the left hand side gives you superficial version of giving feedback, but both actually cover the essence of giving feedback for sure. Please understand, when you decide to give feedback to a person, it doesn't mean that person is filled with all the imperfections on the earth. It doesn't even mean the person only has areas of improvement, not good at anything. That cannot happen, right? See, if you have certain areas of improvement, you will definitely even have certain areas in which you might be extremely good at. So what I would suggest you is, before you could even think of giving feedback to a person, please make a list of those areas in which the person is extremely good at. Maybe the person is very punctual. The person is extremely committed and dedicated. The person always gives his 100% in everything, whatever he or she gets into. So now these become the positive points about the person. Now have it ready and have your areas of improvement, whatever you want to share as actual feedback also ready, so that you can actually serve a complete platter of feedback to the person when you have to give feedback. To give you an example, how do we use it? Sandwich methodology is all about plus, minus, plus. That's all you have to keep it in mind. 2 plus points, 1 or 2 areas of improvement, and 2 plus points again to close it. Imagine if I have to give you feedback, then point number 1, I'm going to make sure that my intention behind giving you feedback is to help you to improve, but not to embarrass you. Point number 2, I'm going to make sure I do it privately when only you and I are there, nobody else around. Point number 3, I'm going to make sure that I have my feedback, which is very specific with specific suggestions. And point number 4, now I'm all set to give you feedback. I would say, first of all, thank you so much for giving your time so that I could share my feedback with you. And I really appreciate your attitude of receiving feedback on the same. I've always noticed you have been very punctual in terms of coming to office every day. You're very dedicated and committed when it comes to any assignment or task, whichever is given to you. We really appreciate it. And I have always felt proud of myself for you being the part of my team. I really appreciate that factor. Along with all this, if you could even work on the way you talk to your team members, it can actually work like a value addition to the way we all work together as a team. And I would really suggest you to get to know each one of your team members, give enough time, build that bond with everyone, understand what everybody is trying to say, pay attention to everybody's input, and then work on the project. I think that can make every project of ours even better. I would like to thank you for all your effort, what you have been putting so far. You are definitely an asset to our team. Thank you so much. See how easy it is, right? So, this is how you use sandwich methodology to give feedback. Last but definitely not all the least, follow up. Friends, it's very important to actually follow up once you give feedback, especially in professional life. Point number one, please make sure that you give enough time for the person who has received the feedback to work on the feedback. Okay. Point number two, start observing the person. What all positive changes you have been able to notice in the person. Point number three, if you think the person is stuck anywhere, then how can you help? Okay, observe all these and check with the person saying, hey, I'm very happy to see the improvement in you after I gave you feedback. At the same time, if you need any kind of assistance from me, let me know. I'm always here to help you out. That actually makes the person feel better, and that will build a better relationship between you two. So, friends, this is how you actually give feedback to a person. I'm sure if you follow this process of giving feedback, you will never end up offending anyone. You will never have that guilty feeling inside you. You will never spoil a relationship with anybody in your professional life. Let's talk about how to receive feedback. So, when it comes to feedback, it's always two ways. When I say two ways, it's not just about learning how to give feedback, it's equally about learning how to receive feedback. Before I could teach you the process of receiving feedback, there is something what I want all of you to understand. If somebody has taken time to come to you, observing certain things about you, to give you feedback, please respect the factor that the person is genuinely concerned with your improvement, cares about your improvement. That's why the person has decided to come to give you feedback. Please understand that and respect it. So, when a person comes to you with an intention of making you better, step number one, please show the attitude of acceptance. Tell them, usually, some people, especially when the feedback is given on the same level, means you are giving feedback to your colleague or your colleague is giving feedback to you, people tend to follow a formality. They would come to you and say, hey, do you mind if I actually share a feedback with you? Immediately, the sentence which has to come out of your mouth, my dear friends, is, yeah, of course, by all means. So once the person actually has shared the feedback with you, by any chance, if the person has forgotten to be very specific in terms of giving feedback, then ask for specific feedback. Let's say I just came to you and vaguely I gave you a feedback saying, I think you need to just work on the way you work. Very vague, because it's a big area what you're talking about. I'm not sure how well you want me to work. At that point of time, with a smile on your face, you can say, hey, thank you so much for sharing this. If you could be more specific how well I have to work at office, I think that's going to help me to work on that. When you say like this, definitely the other person automatically becomes very fascinated to be more specific on the same. Point number three, after receiving of specific feedback, if you think that you might require appropriate suggestions to go forward with working on that particular feedback, ask the person again, saying, do you have any suggestions to make in terms of how I can work or maybe improve in these areas? Then the person might be interested to share everything, whatever he or she has in mind. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, experience counts and matters. So let's make use of that. And most importantly, my dear friends, step number 4, please do not forget to say thank you. Please tell them, thank you so much for coming to me and taking some time to help me to understand the areas of improvement what I have. I really appreciate it. And I will make sure I will work on these areas. Once again, showing your attitude of receptiveness plus your attitude of gratitude. Sometimes some feedbacks might not be very constructive, which might not help you to become better at all. In that particular case, my dear friends, I would suggest you to follow the same steps, receive the feedback, and think about it. Was it constructive or not? If it is constructive, please take it very seriously and start working on that immediately. By any chance, if you have a feeling after all the introspection and self analysis, we know what we are good at, we equally know what we're not good at. So, from that perspective, if you think the feedback which was given to you was not constructive, you can actually let it go. You do not have to go back to that person, keep defending, tell the rest of the people, this person came and gave me vague feedback. This person gave me some unconstructive feedback. You don't have to behave like that. Rather, just let it go because you are very sure that was an unconstructive feedback. However, I must tell you here, if people have observed something about you and came to you and told something, it has to be something very constructive. So I would really appreciate you all taking it very seriously and working on the same. Friends, this is how you receive feedback. Well, friends, that's all I've got for all of you in this video. I'm going to be back very soon with another video with lots of learning. Until then, please take a great care of yourself and have an amazing time ahead. Thank you so much for watching the video.